name is Perri Kilcourse, and I'm here to present my research project I did on my unit. The title was Evaluating the Documentation of Timed Research Blood Draws in an Electronic Health Record versus Paper Charting. Okay, the Health Information Technology for Economics and Clinical Health Act forced everyone to go to EHRs, Electronic Health Records. These electronic health records are beneficial because they are accessible to all providers in real time in the information in the EHR. They eliminate the use of poor penmanship. They securely share and store electronic health information, and they reduce the ordering of duplicate testing. Technology has been widespread in healthcare for a number of years, and that can range from infusion pumps to laparoscopic assisted surgery. I'm going to tell you how I got EHRs used on my unit. I'm a nurse at the CTRC, and that is a place at UNC where researchers can provide nursing care portions to clinical trials. We have 10 exam rooms, 4 infusion chairs, 2 extended stay rooms, and a procedural care suite. There's also facilities to collect, process, and store specimen. We have a staff of 4 full-time nurses and 6 part-time nurses. These are some of the specialties that we see at the CTRC. They're very wide and varying, from pediatric to adult studies. Join the Conquest is UNC's site where you can find out about clinical research studies throughout the UNC system. The current method of documenting at the CTRC is to use paper flow sheets and in a local EHR. We use EPIC. Every SOTA protocol has different requirements, one of these being timed pharmacokinetic blood draws. Examples of pharmacokinetic blood draws are pre-dose, half-hour post-dose, and 2 hours post-end of infusion. Right now, we document PK samples on flow sheets and in the EHR with multiple phlebotomy research blood draw orders. Yeah, I was going to explain that. So this is an example of what a research phlebotomy blood draw order looks like for us. These are simple ones, but we would have ones there if we were using it for PK blood draws, and we put the time point that we collected. Okay. This is an example of a generic paper flow sheet. Some of the information that we always collect when patients come to the CTRC are vital signs, height and weight, pregnancy screening, and medication administration. Not only do we document on this flow sheet, all of that same stuff is documented in the EHR, so we are double charting. This is an example of a flow sheet with multiple PK time points. So these time points are based off of the dosing time up here, and they're 30, 60, 90, and 120 minutes, and then we have blood draw samples, 2 months that we need. So, as a nurse at the CTRC, I thought there must be a way to enter multiple PK collection times in EPIC without having to use multiple phlebotomy research blood draws or document on paper. Let's try to go paperless. So I met with the EPIC team at UNC Healthcare and told them what I needed in an EHR flow sheet to document multiple phlebotomy research or multiple PK samples. The most important aspects were the time that the blood draw was collected and the associated time point with that collection. So luckily in the EPIC Community Library, they were able to find a pre-made flow sheet. So we're going to take a look. This is the EPIC Community Library flow sheet. It's called Research Blood Draw Time Points. And you can see that you put your blood draw time in here, free text it, or you can enter time under the flow sheet, and comment is where I wanted us to write the associated time points, such as 2 hours post-dose. Sorry. And this is what it looks like in our EPIC for CTRC. So how was I going to see which method of charting was faster? I decided to perform a time motion study on my unit, as well as garnering satisfaction of my fellow nurses of whether they liked paper charting or if they liked charting in the EHR. So in order to do this, I had to check the schedule each week to see which studies we had that had multiple PK samples. As long as there was at least 1 PK sample associated with that study, we used it because they were very hard to come by. I recruited my fellow CTRC nurses, all 7 that I asked agreed, so that was very nice. And then I also passed out surveys after they used both forms, both paper charting and the EHR. I also provided training and a tip sheet of what or how I wanted them to use the new flow sheet in our Epic. So nurses could chart in any form, in any order, as long as they use both while using for that same time point. So they could paper chart or chart on the Epic flow sheet. I just followed, and then I timed her when she was charting on both of them, either paper or electronic. I just followed them. This is an example of the user satisfaction surveys that I passed out to my nurses. They ranged from 0 to 9 rating scale and overall reactions to personal capabilities and system capabilities. I also encouraged my participants to free text positive and negative aspects of using both forms of charting. These are my results. Here's my demographics table. Range of and hours spent in EHR. On my graph is the averages and data time points of paper charting and Epic charting. That average for Epic was 37 seconds and average for paper was 22 seconds. For paper charting was 5.06 seconds and the longest was 37.27, no, it was 48.45 seconds. And the shortest time to chart in Epic was 16 seconds, and the longest time was 108 seconds. But that was due to some technical difficulty with the research flow sheet preparing from her EHR.
Sarah.
I also compared the two age groups to see if there was any difference between paper and Epic charting. So for the 35 to 49 age group, their average time was 19.07 seconds using the paper charting, and for those over 60, it was only 21.97 seconds. However, using the Epic flow sheet, it was 36.08 for those under 60, and over 60 was 47.31.
I will email her now.
Two of the 3 nurses in the 60 plus age group work full time on our unit. So their daily use of Epic may have made them more proficient at charting in the Epic flow sheet than the part-time nurse that only works twice a month. These are the results of the surveys that I conducted after the users used both paper and the EHR. So as you can see, Epic rated higher in every single category by every nurse, which was very interesting. So that to me indicated that they are ready to move to a paperless system and ready to get rid of the paper flow sheet, or that the hybrid system of double documenting is not working for anybody. This is the graph of the correlation between the years of experience of the nurse and their satisfaction ratings. The correlation between the paper flow sheet and years of the nurse was negative 0.43. And the correlation between the Epic flow sheet and the years as a nurse was negative 0.31, indicating that there was no association with the nurse's satisfaction using either the paper or the electronic flow sheet. The purpose of my study was to create a place in Epic where we can chart these multiple time blood draws, as well as create a cultural change to move away from double documenting on paper and in the EHR and go to a paperless system using only our Epic flow sheets. As of right now, we double chart, like I said before, a lot of information, and that can lead to discrepancies when there's a difference between the EHR and the paper flow sheet, which can cause issues on the back end for study coordinators and data analysts if there's a discrepancy, because they need to decide, figure out which one is correct. And then it's a lot of work on their end. Right now, when we complete a paper flow sheet with some of the EHR information and everything else that's on the paper, it gets sent to medical records and is uploaded as a media file to the patient's chart. That takes some time. So if we were to document all in the EHR, all information would be readily available instantly in the patient's chart. So why did charting in Epic take so long? There was great variability in how the nurses chose to chart. Some on our unit choose to take the paper flow sheet with them to the patient and then walk back to the nurse's station and chart in the EHR. Some people do all charting at the nurse's station. So because I timed everything that they did, including the writing, walking, and typing, that made some differences. If they took the flow sheet with them into the patient's room, it was a much quicker way to chart. And then walking back to our nurse's station is further from some rooms, like our extended stay rooms, than our infusion chairs, which are right with the nurse's bay. It is cultural practice for all of us to chart at the nurse's station, even though we have computers in every room. They just are not readily used by the CTRC staff. During follow-ups with the nursing staff, I asked why they preferred to always chart at the nurse's station instead of utilizing the computers in the patient's room. And most often the answer was they preferred to chart at the nurse's station because they were afraid they would accidentally leave the chart open in the patient's room, thereby exposing that patient's chart to anybody who could walk by and enter the room and look at stuff they weren't supposed to, which is a HIPAA violation. And also for nurses' voice not wanting to be in the patient's room due to the potential to get distracted by a study coordinator or the patient themselves as they were trying to report important information. This is a slide of the positives and negatives that the nurses shared with me on using a paper flow sheet. They liked that there was no need to find a computer, which doesn't seem all that big of a deal when there are a lot of computers available for the nurses to use. It's a physical portable presence that and it's comforting to them to have in hand and it also serves as a reminder of when to complete those tasks. As of right now, Epic cannot calculate when a sample needs to be drawn or send a reminder to the nurse that one is upcoming. Some of the negatives were a busy appearance, which if you remember from the generic flow sheet, there can be many study activities that need to occur at one time point. And so trying to see which is most important, and it looks busy. There's a lot in one box that needs to occur at one time point. Correcting errors becomes very messy. In an EHR, it's easy to just delete, put in your correct time, and it's saved. On a paper flow sheet, there's a lot of crossing out, initialing, and dating that makes it look very busy. And then sometimes we run into delays with starting study protocols due to flow sheets not being given to us 24 hours in advance, which is our policy. So it slows things down in the morning. This is what the nurses had to say about using the Epic flow sheet. They found it easy to use, it was accessible to all providers in real time, and had a neat and clean appearance. However, like the adoption of any technology in healthcare, there was noted concerns. Again, computer availability, we have lots of computers, not such a big deal. One nurse raised the question of how to document during scheduled downtime. We're an ambulatory outpatient clinic, and downtimes are usually scheduled on Sunday mornings from 1 to 4 a.m., which we don't usually have patients at that time, so it doesn't really matter to us. And then training study coordinators where to look for information. Our views are different from nurse to provider to study coordinator, so I don't know if the study coordinators have access to these flow sheets yet. It was live for the nurses to use in our unit, but not the study coordinators. What I see is the future for the research blood draw flow sheet. After a follow-up with the nurses who participated in my study, 4 of the 7 have incorporated that into their workflow and are continuing to use the research blood draw flow sheet, whether they're doing PK samplings or if they're just drawing blood on their patient, which was really good. I asked some of the study coordinators whose studies protocols were used in the study what they thought of the research blood draw flow sheet, and they were enthusiastic about it, but also had some concerns that they liked paper copy as well. But all the charting for that patient's visit would be in one place. There wouldn't be a paper flow sheet that they have to pull for their medical monitor. And they could just sit the medical monitor down in front of Epic and see everything all at once. This study could be expanded to the clinical trials unit at Lineberger for their own separate studies. And then there are CTRCs throughout the country, and the majority of them are still using a hybrid system just like we are. So if they use the Epic software system, they could get this research blood draw flow sheet instituted at their unit and document PK blood draws on those. So to summarize, I wanted to find a way to chart multiple times blood draws in Epic without having to use a paper flow sheet or multiple research phlebotomy draw orders. I recruited the nurses at my clinic, and we participated in this study doing the research blood draw flow sheet. I timed the participants charting on the paper flow sheet that we already used and in the new EHR flow sheet. Although charting in the EHR flow sheet took longer, nurses preferred charting in the Epic flow sheet over the current paper method. In order for this flow sheet to continue to be a success, 2 workplace cultural changes need to occur at the CTRC. The nurses need to become more comfortable using the computers in patient rooms and not always charting at the nurse's station. And study coordinators need to utilize the Epic's ability to record multiple time blood draws so we can move away from a paper flow sheet and chart everything in Epic, making our unit go more towards paperless. Thank you. Any questions?
Ways to get around that. If that is paper.
That's a good point. We used Epic Rovers at St. Luke's Hospital where I came from, and like the NAs could enter all their blood pressures and everything right there instead of having to write it on down on the paper like we used to do. Once we got Rovers, you scanned that patient's badge, their ID badge, and then you enter the information and away it went. So maybe it could be adopted that way.
People are already doing that. A lot of connections. Here I like to enter it in. What I care about is how long it takes me to get to it. So,